or it's because it's ideologically more liberal. I said there's a higher tolerance for that than my position, which is a more radical critique of the whole enchilada, of the whole thing. And, she, I think, was being a little tough. With Dave, I think we really straightened it out. And what we walked away with, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, is that Dave really is, and I said this to him, lowercase l liberal. And by that, you can take it as classical liberal, a right liberal, as opposed to a left liberal or a progressive, libertarian. But he comes at it more from the perspective that you've got certain Jews and non-Jews that are pushing things like neoconservatism. And so it's a more of a narrow critique. It says that you don't really have a problem that proceeds from Jewish identity or Jewishness per se. You have some Jewish people, powerful Jewish people, that with a number of non-Jewish people happen to be pushing some aggressive policies, and they're coming together for different reasons. The defense industry, the ideological neocons, these like democratic globalist types like a Dick Cheney, a Condi Rice, and these fanatical like Kudniks and Israeli nationalists. There's this convergence. That's why we're getting it. Whereas me, I am illiberal. I am identitarian. I believe that race and religion are essential. And race and religion imply necessarily political interests. And this was really the rub, is basically Dave is saying it's not the Jews, it's like neocons. And many of them are motivated by Jewish self-interest, whether that's rational or irrational. Me, I'm saying no, it is Jewish identity in itself. It is, in a nutshell, the Jews. It is the fact that by their nature as a group, they have a history of persecution, a history of resistance to assimilation, a history as a tiny minority that makes them inherently tribalistic, distrusting of outsiders, willing and able to put themselves first in combination with their transnational presence. And I said, really, that it's a deeper critique. And it's...
Yeah, I agree with him. They tend to just, for example, you were born here in the United States, instead of holding a true, a true pride for your country or where you were born, they still hold a very tight commitment to Israel. Listen, to be honest, I don't think that Israel is that important. I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't think so. I think we have to focus on things that really matter when it comes down to migration, Muslims just spreading all over the country. I think that's a bigger threat, because what I notice is people with the hat, they tend to work better in our system, in the Western system, but the people that are from Muslim countries, they don't. I think just focusing in a bigger fish when you have to go deep into the ocean, it's just a waste of resources. Because in the long run, you can fix these things, but while you're trying to just get the people from the hat, what you're doing is you're getting out of focus with things that really matter inside your country, which is migration. Immigration should be the top priority of everybody. But no, it's not
really more of a structural critique.
If I'm wrong, let me know.
And saying that I don't want necessarily to stop sending Israel foreign aid and reset relations with Israel. America needs to reevaluate its liberal premise and say, can we have American-born Jewish billionaires lobbying for Israel, or American-born Jewish billionaires lobbying for open borders or an open society?
That's the problem.
We have to kind of reflect on whether an open society can tolerate such an aggressive, organized minority pushing for their international or foreign national interest. That's kind of the disagreement. And I don't know that I was surprised, but I felt sort of relieved to hear him say some of the things that he said, because it's like, okay, so I'm not crazy. We don't really agree on everything. Now, we agree on a lot, but there's kind of like a fundamental difference. And I would say that he represents like libertarian, anti-war, really coming at it from a liberal point of view. And I'm not using that and to be shitty and say like, well, you're just left wing. I mean, no, like that, everyone's liberal. Everyone's priors are that they are liberal. They believe that everyone's a blank slate. Anyone can believe whatever they want. It's somewhat arbitrary. Whereas I am illiberal. I am identitarian. I do believe in group strategies, group interests.
100%.
And in a democratic, open society, these various groups are going to come into conflict, and it's actually rational that they do so. Properly understood, the Jews do have a collective self-interest. Whites have a collective self-interest. Blacks have a...
I don't disagree. Whites are the only group in its entire face of the earth that they don't understand the collective mindset. They're very individualistic, very extremely individualistic. They're the one that would just hold a multi-billion-dollar company and say, you know what, I'm gonna choose the best. And then I'm gonna not only choose the best, I'm just gonna go diversity because there's too many white people in this company. And then a lot of the minorities come into the company and they start kicking white people out, and they start bringing their own. Like, they haven't, I think this is more like a post-World War II mindset that we acquired, where we think that, you know, somehow being European is something, if you have some European ancestry on you, you should be ashamed, which is completely ridiculous.
Collective self-interest. And politics increasingly becomes a forum for those interests to be mediated and increasingly actually to be sharpened and to become a source for conflict. And anyway, so that was very interesting. But it was a really good talk. If you want to watch it, it's on his YouTube channel. It's on YouTube. It premiered this afternoon, and people loved it. I mean, the reaction, I think the feedback was universally positive. I also did a stream with Sneeko. I retweeted that. That's on Twitter, and we just kind of hung out. It wasn't like, it was about 20 minutes, so it wasn't a 3.5-hour political debate, but I got to catch up with him a little bit. And about Sneeko, I just want to say, I do feel compelled to say this. You know, I saw a lot of people in the replies, they're giving Sneeko a hard time, and some people are being funny and they're goofing around. But I do have to say, Sneeko has really always been there for me. And I saw some people in the replies, they were saying, oh, Sneeko's gonna have Nick on his Twitter show, because he does these daily videos on Twitter. He makes these, like, they're more like artistic video essay type uploads. People said, oh, you're having him on your Twitter now that he's on the generational run. And there, people were basically saying Sneeko was being opportunistic. And I think it's only fair to say, in reply to that, that if you recall, Sneeko really put me on 3 years ago. When I was on Cozy, before I was on Rumble, before the generational run, when I was canceled by everybody, before I met Ye, it was in the summer of 2022, when I was really languishing, when I was really having a tough time. I had no platform access. This was way before, this was before October 7th, Ye 24, before any kind of hint of this huge run that I've been on for the past couple of years. He had me on his stream multiple times, advocated for me when he had really nothing to benefit. And it cost him significantly. He got me on Fresh and Fit, along with Zerka. And I think he worked on some other people getting me on some shows. So I think it's only fair to push back on that, because I did his thing and we hung out. It's, you know, it's always fun. He's a solid guy, but I saw a lot of groypers giving him shit. And I do feel compelled to say this because it's the same with Patrick Bet-David. When people do the right thing, you have to be as lavish in your praise as you are when you're hating on them when they're doing the wrong thing. That's borrowed from Dale Carnegie, but it's true. The groypers need to be just as positive towards people that are helping us out, taking a risk, doing the right thing. We have to have a longer memory for the good things that people do for us, as much as we have a memory for the ways that people screw us over and the ways that people are cowardly or don't always do the right thing. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, so anyway, it's been It's been another long weekend of content. I'm a little bit exhausted. I got back today, had a lot of work to do, and now I'm doing a show. So
come on,
I don't know if you can
Nick.
tell, but I'm a little bit tired. So we're going to try to get through the show as best as I can. I can't promise I'm not going to crash out on the super chatters. Anyway, so that was the big weekend of content. Dave Smith, Sneeko are uploaded. Big day. And then we have a couple more collaborations coming up that are finished that will be released, I think, in the coming days. Certainly, I think, before next week. It's a veritable blitzkrieg of content. Did you see that clip? I posted that on Telegram. Somebody sent me this clip from Candace Owens' show. And she goes on Twitter before, and this is kind of a good segue. We'll talk about these texts. But on Candace Owens' show, she talks about this tweet. She goes on Twitter and says, today is Blitzkrieg Day. Because she was going to release this big evidence in the Charlie Kirk scandal. And we know what Blitzkrieg is. If you graduated high school, I would hope you know what Blitzkrieg is or was and what it means. She goes on her show and she's reading through her own tweet and she goes, yeah. So I tweeted, it's Blitzkrieg Day. And I said, wait, stop. What did she just say? I double tapped. Wait, what did she just say? Blitzkrieg? Blitzkrieg? It's not, bitch. It's not an omelet. She says Blitzkrieg Day. I go, okay, so she can't pronounce that. She goes, and Blitzkrieg, that's relating to the Germans. It's a strategy of bombardment. And so we're bombarding them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she doesn't know what Blitzkrieg. I'm like, are you serious? I'm watching, somebody sent me the clip. They're like, she doesn't know how to pronounce Krieg. I said, in what context? They sent me the clip. She goes, today is Blitzkrieg Day. That's, like the Germans. It relates to the Germans. It's a strategy of bombardment.
What?
Strategy of, what are you talking about? That's not, it means lightning warfare. It means lightning warfare, racing ahead with fast mobile units, following up with armor. What are you talking about? I think the armor went first, then the infantry. But point being, she goes, it's a strategy of, what? You watch every one of these shows, there's just like a little nugget. There's a little 10-piece McNugget morsel in the show. I can't get over it. Anyway, that's actually a good segue. We'll get into it. Our first big story for tonight is about this Charlie Kirk text, which she unveiled. And you know what? To her credit, whether you want to call it lightning warfare, a blitz, or you want to call it a blitzkrieg and it's a bombardment, whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it, she brought it. She brought the evidence, finally. And this is all I've been asking for. I said from the beginning, after Charlie Kirk was murdered, I said, look, if there's any evidence at all about his change of heart on Israel, about any potential conspiracy, I said, we need to see the evidence. We need to be guided by the hard facts, not speculation, not visual artifacts inside of a live stream. People say that looked like a muzzle flash. You don't know that. It could just be a low resolution stream. From the very beginning, I said, we need to be led by the facts and follow where the facts lead. And I said from the outset, if the facts lead us to believe that there is some Israel connection or any connection, any conspiracy, I said, I'm willing to go where the facts lead. I'm willing to follow. But from the very beginning, we had very little in the way of facts. From the FBI, they were making some extraordinary claims. Law enforcement says we have videos, photos, written confession, we have DNA evidence, we have the murder weapon, we have a suspect, okay? Now, granted, and it's important to keep in mind, in this assassination, we have a suspect in custody that the state claims is the killer. They've charged him.
Supposedly.
Unlike
Allegedly.
the Thomas Crooks, Donald Trump assassination attempt, they took him alive. What does that mean? It means that they are going to have to convict him in court. Thomas Crooks is dead. You can't convict him. So you don't have to worry about finding a jury. You don't have to worry about making the charges stick. You don't have to worry about proving it to a jury. More importantly, you don't have to deal with that entire process because you don't have a suspect or a killer to try. This is different. The FBI has their man. Now, when you have a high-profile killing like this, it is never the case that law enforcement releases all their information. It just isn't. And the state came out, I think within days of the assassination, and they said something very specific. They said, we have a constitution. They said that the suspect has a 5th and 6th Amendment right to a fair and speedy trial, to a jury of their peers. And I think what he was getting at, if we're being logical, is that if you're trying to convict this guy, you need to convict him before a jury. To get a jury, you need to find a group of people in the state of Utah that is not tainted, that they don't know all the facts, they don't believe he's guilty. Hard. You need to find a dozen people in the state of Utah that do not know enough about the case, that they're prejudiced against the suspect. They cannot taint the jury pool.
And that's very hard.
So in an ordinary murder investigation, the state does not release everything to the public because the trial happens in court, not in the press. But in particular, in such a high-profile case, you can't put out everything that you have because you need to find a jury, and then you need to convict him in a court of law before a jury and allow the accused to exhaust all of his legal remedies to the fact that he's being accused for murder. So with that being said, the state is claiming that they have all of this,
like the video, guys,
and that will have its day in court. The state says they have video, photo, a suspect, a murder weapon, DNA, a confession. They have all this. And I understand people have expressed skepticism and doubt about those claims. And I agree. We should not automatically take that at face value. But all of those claims literally will have their day in court. And then I assume those things eventually will make their way to the public, but it first must be proven in a court of law because that is our legal process. On the other side, you don't have a ton of evidence. You have a trap door. You have people that are fidgeting at the moment that Charlie Kirk was shot. Some are speculating that they're fidgeting because they're concealing a weapon, or they're signaling to the shooter, or they were activated when the shot was taken to carry out some kind of pre-planned cleanup operation or something like that. There's not a ton in the way of evidence. On the state's side, like I said, they have a guy. They claim to have a weapon, a written confession, video, photo. They say there's DNA on the towel. They identified the gun. Okay, that's what they claim they have. That's a lot of hard evidence. If that's real, that's pretty solid. On the other side, you have people saying, well, that doesn't look like an entry wound, and that's more in the realm of speculation. So anyway, without belaboring it, from the very start, I said we need to follow the evidence. If you have evidence, produce it. And what was very frustrating is that the charge on the conspiracy was being led by Candace Owens, and for basically 4 weeks. Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10th.
I call that milking the cow, man. She was really milking content.
It is October 8th. For the better part of 4 weeks, she had not produced any hard evidence. She has alluded to hard evidence, like the letter, which she never produced. She has alluded to video evidence or maybe other evidence of claims, statements by Charlie Kirk. Up until Monday, we have not seen any of that, and that made me very skeptical of everything that she was saying. But finally,